Hello, and welcome to another episode of America's Greatest Personalities. I am Robert Landau, Live Life Well TV host. This episode, it is my pleasure to talk to you about the amazing, iconic John Wayne. And what I'm going to do is go through a bit of his life story, and my hope is that you might come away from this learning a couple of things about Mr. Wayne that you might not have previously known. So let's start off with some quotes that are directly attributable to this great man. John Wayne once said, "My hope and prayer is that everyone know and love our country for what she really is and what she stands for." He also said, "Tomorrow is the most important thing in life. Comes to us at midnight very clean. It's perfect when it arrives and it puts itself in our hands. It hopes we've learned something from yesterday." John Wayne also said this, "Courage is being scared to death but saddling up anyway." He also said, "You're short on ears and long on mouth." John also said, "A man deserves a second chance, but keep an eye on it." He also said, "I won't be wronged. I won't be insulted. I won't be laid a hand on. I don't do these things to other people, and I require the same from them." "All battles," he once said, "are fought by scared men who'd rather be somewhere else." And finally, the great John Wayne said, "I stick to simple themes: love, hate, no nuances. I stay away from psychoanalysts' couch scenes. Couches are good for one thing." Here are some facts that you might not have known about John Wayne. John Wayne loved chess. In fact, he had a major passion for it, but you also might not have known that John Wayne cheated at chess. Wayne loved chess so much he had a permanent chessboard on his yacht, and the yacht's name was the Wild Goose. One of his favorite chess buddies might be someone you might have heard of before, a wonderful actor by the name of Robert Mitchum. Mitchum and Wayne used to play chess often together. One time, Mitchum had enough of Wayne's chess cheating ways, and Wayne finally said, "I was wondering when you were going to say something. Set him up and we'll play again." John Wayne also loved literature. Some of his favorite authors were Agatha Christie, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and Charles Dickens. John Wayne was also a very superstitious man. How so? Well, get this. He would absolutely freak out if he ever saw a hat sitting on top of a bed. Also, if you were a family member, you knew that you could never, ever pass the salt directly to Wayne. At the dinner table, you could put the salt in front of him, and then he would reach for it after it was put down and use it himself. You just couldn't directly pass it to him so that he would take it from you. Another fun fact concerning Mr. Wayne is that you might not have known that he was an absolute fan. He was in awe of Sir Winston Churchill, and to that end had the entire set of Winston Churchill's prose. How about this? Joseph Stalin was quite the film buff and found himself outraged at the anti-communist sentiments Wayne expressed in the late 1940s. Reportedly, Stalin ordered a hit on the movie star, dispatching 2 KGB assassins back in 1951. But thank God, the FBI were wise to this sinister plot and happened to intercept the 2 hitmen. John Wayne was also a gracious and humble winner of awards. When Wayne won the Academy Award for his role as Rooster Cogburn in the movie True Grit, Wayne left the stage after receiving the statuette and went right to Richard Burton's dressing room, knocked on the door, and when Burton opened it, John Wayne said, "You should have this, not me." You might not have known, but another fun fact concerning Mr. Wayne was the fact that his hair began thinning rather quickly in the 1940s. By the end of that decade, he would always wear a hairpiece. One time, John Wayne agreed to appear at Harvard University and talk to the students there. At the end of his talk, he opened things up for questions. It was then that a student way in the back of this huge hall said the following to John Wayne. "Mr. Wayne, can you tell me, please, where you got that phony hair?" To which Wayne immediately responded, "It's not phony. It actually happens to be real hair. Of course, it's not mine, but it's real." John Wayne would also never, ever wear suede shoes. Why? Here's the reason from John Wayne himself, when he once said, "Because one day a guy in the next stall in a public restroom recognized me and turned towards me and said, 'John Wayne, you're my favorite actor.' And because he turned towards me to say that, he peed all over my suede shoes." It's Marion Robert. I'm so used to saying Robert because that's me, but Robert actually was his middle name. Marion was his first, Robert was his middle, his last, Morrison. Marion Robert Morrison was born on May 26, 2007 in Winterset, Iowa. Marion's father, by the name of Clyde, was the son of a famous Civil War veteran. His mother's name was Mary Brown, and she would give birth to one more son by the name of Robert. Marion's ancestry was Scottish, Irish, and English. The family would move to Glendale, California when Marion was 9 years of age because his father had accepted a job as a pharmacist there. It was in 1906 that one of Marion's famous nicknames would be given to him. This happened before he was an actor, way before anyone even knew who he was. What's one of his famous nicknames? Of course, it starts with a D, it's 4 letters, Duke. Every morning, Wayne would walk the same route to school, which would involve passing a fire station. The firemen would always see Wayne and his dog walk by too. Wayne's dog was called Duke. The firemen would call Wayne Little Duke. Marion would now ask everyone to call him Duke instead of Marion. Football happened to be a major pastime for Duke. He played it in high school and would go on to play it rather well in college. Duke started to get very serious about making football his full-time profession once he graduated, but unfortunately, he injured his collarbone so badly that he not only had to give up the hope of ever playing football professionally, which he truly wanted to do, but he could also never play football again. The athletic scholarship that Duke was taking advantage of dried up when he couldn't play football any longer. So obviously, matters went from bad to worse when he was forced to drop out of college. His folks couldn't simply afford to keep Duke in college without the support of that athletic scholarship. So, question, what do you do when you're down and out on your luck and you happen to be no less than 6 feet 4 inches tall, full of tough and gruff? So what do? In Duke's case, you become a prop boy and movie extra in Hollywood. Through the years of playing football, Duke had made some pretty cool connections in Hollywood, so there he went. Bit parts in films would follow, and it is at this time that Wayne would end up creating his legendary walk and talk. And I'm terrible at doing that, so please forgive me. Who would he credit with his legendary walk and talk? A guy by the name of Wyatt Earp, whom he had met on the set of a couple of films. Extra roles would soon lead to a lasting friendship with a famous Hollywood director that you might have heard of by the name of John Ford. When you know John Ford and you are an up-and-coming actor, well, let's just say that it doesn't get any better than that. Duke's first starring role would occur in 1930. It was a movie by the name of The Big Trail. Before the film could be released, the Fox Corporation had a bit of an issue on their hands. They didn't happen to like the given name of their leading man in this film. Marion Robert Morrison just didn't have that leading man vibe associated with it. So at first the studio thought that they would change Marion Morrison to Anthony Wayne. But after thinking about that for just a little while, the studio didn't like the name because they thought Anthony sounded too Italian for an actor who would be making a heck of a lot of American Westerns. So Anthony Wayne soon became John Wayne. No one ever told Duke about that change, about that decision. It's as if he came to work one day and found out his new name once he walked onto that set. Since he was now leading man material, his salary was up to $105 a week. Was his first major motion picture, The Big Trail, a success? No. It was made, though, at a staggering cost of $2 million back in those days, and it literally bombed at the box office. Because of this, John Wayne was forced back into playing teeny tiny small roles. In fact, he even played a corpse in 1931 in a film called The Deceiver. Wow, that's a little bit of a demotion. Wayne would eventually play leads again in something Hollywood would call horse operas. These were cheap and low-budget westerns. Wayne would make close to 80 horse operas between 1931 and 1939 80 between 31 and 39. So when would this monotony end? I mean, I would think that Duke really wanted to play a well-written role in a first-class A motion picture that would do extremely well at the box office. Thank you very much. Fortunately, his good friend, director John Ford, would offer Duke the leading role in a Western by the name of Stagecoach. The year was 1939. Ford was one of the only people in Hollywood to totally believe in Wayne's star power, saying that John Wayne would become a Western movie icon because of his everyman looks and personality. And of course, John Ford was totally correct. Now, John Wayne was a major star, and film roles would flow his way, but World War II was also flowing at that time. Wayne desperately wanted to enlist, but his film studio at the time, Republic Pictures, kept deferring his enlistment. Duke would end up visiting U.S. bases and hospitals all throughout the Pacific Rim during 1943 and 1944. What few people actually realized at the time was that John Wayne really wanted to totally abandon his film career and serve his country, but his studio would not let him. This hurt him deeply. And it's speculated to be the reason why he ended up becoming so patriotic about America in his later years. All because he felt guilty that he couldn't serve in the military to defend his country when he felt his country needed him the most. To continue to talk about John Wayne's films one by one would literally take hours. We'd have to make this a 4-part series, but get this. John Wayne made no less than 250 movies between the years of 1926 and 1976. 250 movies. Some of them were True Grit, The High and the Mighty, Flying Tigers, El Dorado, The Green Berets, The Alamo, The Shootist, which would actually be his last and final film in 1976. In that movie, Wayne portrayed a character that happened to have been dying of cancer. 3 years after that film was made, it was the great John Wayne that happened to be dying of cancer. He was quoted as saying this: "God, how I hate solemn funerals. When I die, take me into a room and burn me. Then my family and a few good friends should get together, have a few good belts, and talk about the crazy old time we all had together." The Duke was an avid cigarette smoker and would smoke from 5 to 6 packs of cigarettes a day. We would lose this great guy, this passionate guy, this true American icon at the age of 72 due to stomach cancer on June 11th, 1979. Before I close, just a little bit about his personal life. I think it's important to cover that too, to paint a more vivid portrait of him. He was married 3 times and divorced twice. He separated from his last wife. Each of his wives happened to have been of Hispanic descent. He lived the remainder of his years after he separated from his last wife with his assistant. 7 children were born from his marriages. Wayne also happened to have a few high-profile alleged affairs, the most famous with Marlene Dietrich and Merle Oberon, allegedly. It is also widely reported that Duke loved to drink. Many a Hollywood film director would make sure all of Wayne's scenes were shot before noon, because after that, well, I'll leave the rest to you. Wayne was also known as a very vocal and prominent member of the Republican Party. Because of his love for the party and his love for his country, Wayne was even asked to run for the office of president. Duke refused, feeling that people wouldn't buy that an actor was now all of a sudden wanting to be president. But when another actor wanted to be president, Duke was right by his side as his support, and of course that actor was Ronald Reagan. In closing, what can one say about this larger-than-life American hero? He stood for what he believed in and was not ever afraid to tell you so. He loved his country more than he loved his own life. But someone once said it best in this wonderful way. John Wayne is an American institution, and nothing can topple him. He has tremendous guts, always has. There is the Rock of Gibraltar, the Empire State Building, and Duke Wayne. I don't think anything more needs to be said. A perfect way to end this episode of America's Greatest Personalities. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been Robert Landau, Live Life Well TV host. We'll see you next episode.